Okay, let's call to meeting the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board of School Directors meeting. Are there any adjustments or amendments to the agenda?
No, I don't think so.
Anybody? Okay, good. We may require an executive session when we get down to item number 9. So we'll make note of that. Review and approve the minutes of December 6th. So do I have a motion? Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I have a change.
I need a second first.
Okay.
You want to second it?
I'll second it.
All right, good enough. Okay. And you have a change?
Yeah, I just wanted to add my name to the members in attendance.
Okay.
Okay?
I also have so on the second page, where Rick Holloway moved to approve a budget, that budget number is not, there must be a number missing or commas in the wrong place.
Oh,
The commas, yeah.
no, there's a number missing.
It should read 13,045,64802.
Okay, good catch.
Number
It's a
system.
new numbering system,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a part of the new math.
I learned a little bit.
Okay. Good. Any other corrections? Anyone notes? Jack?
Just a word, in the discussion about the SU budget, it mentions that I said that the food service program was a willful increase, and I think that I'd rather use the word intentional, because willful means other things.
Okay. Okay, any other corrections? All right, all in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
As corrected?
Aye.
All right, good. Communication and public comments. Mr. Clark, by the way, are you here as the public or as a representative?
I represent this, I represent Fellows Falls Union High School Board as a permanent member of the SU board now.
Okay, thank you for clarification.
Don, he's the substitute tonight.
He's the substitute tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. Everyone else is here as a representative, correct? Okay, good. So no public for public comments. Okay. Policies, first reads.
Okay. This is kind of by way of telling you that in May we're going to have one of a regularly scheduled audits of state and federal programs here, and this is they send us a list of policies and procedures we're supposed to have in place, and before we had these as procedures, and now they say they need to be policies. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. So these two now proposed policies come to you, kind of from the business office. And they are now required, so we didn't run them through the policy review committee that we have in place because they're kind of non-negotiable. And so E14 relates to how assets are accounted for, part of the business office operations, and E15 basically says, yes, we're going to reimburse people for travel when it's appropriate to do so, and that we do that.
So both of these reflect current practice. We're just elevating them to policy statements.
I believe that's true. I don't know if you have
Correct.
any further comments.
We have a federal audit coming up in May, And they're looking for these now as policies, no longer acceptable to have them just as a procedure.
But substantially unchanged from what we're currently doing.
Yeah, there is no change there.
Very good. Okay, any other questions?
Should we be anticipating more of these, Chris? Because, I mean, the thing about generally accepted accounting practices kind of cracks me up, because I assume that we adhere to generally, accepted accounting practices, period.
Yes, we do.
If you really want sleeping material, you can go back. We already have a bunch of policies that are about accounting,
Yeah.
from the last round around, anyway.
And they are bedtime reading.
Yeah,
I've read 'em.
but these are the only ones that we know about for this particular round of,
Correct.
David, did you have a question?
I would like to offer a motion to warn for adoption, but before I make the motion, I would like to bring up a point of order with the chair.
Okay.
The Union High School appointed Dawn to fill Molly's seat, Molly Bannock's seat tonight, because we believe that she would be tied up with superintendent evaluation. So I think we should just square away who the high school's voting members are. I don't
Okay,
know
so
how
who would the
chair
high school?
wants to rule on that, but
Yeah.
he's appointed.
I have volunteered to be the public tonight, the scenes, the person
Well,
I'm supposed
who's
to
here from
replace.
the high school then? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so then Don.
Well, four. Because
Four.
that's here as
Four,
well.
because Debbie,
Okay.
Deb's.
All right, so someone is going to, well, it would be, Don then in this particular case would be a member of the public.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And you wish to make a motion, I understand?
I would like to move capital assets policy, I believe we just discussed, am I correct?
And the travel reimbursement. Yeah.
And I would like to move both capital assets and travel reimbursement policy to a warning.
Okay, second?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion? There be, yes.
Well, I had just one concern about travel reimbursement and thought that the reasonable expenses weren't well defined. They seem vague, because they're not listed, not listed out. There's no, what it is, mileage, if it's using the government standard or whatever.
Those would fall under procedures.
So they wouldn't be in the policy itself.
They would not be in the policy themselves, no. Because then every time that you changed a mileage, you would have to change a policy, whereas you can amend a procedure in a much
And
more
just go
rapid fashion.
refer to the procedure.
Yes.
Okay, and then my other concern was that it's made it sound as though if there's to the extent that budgeted funds permit. So does that mean when you run out of funds, the next person isn't going to get reimbursed? Because I'm sure we have budget lines for the reimbursement. And when you're out of it, you're out of it.
Can I address that?
That's all, just one explanation.
I think the
what that
wording
means.
is intended to kind of acknowledge the fact that funds are not limitless.
They are limited.
Yeah,
And
That's
all travel under our
Reimbursement.
procedures should be pre-approved anyway.
right.
Okay, that was all, just those 2 points.
Okay, good. Any other comments? Any objections? There being no objection, the motion passes, and we will have these come up next month for finalization. Superintendent's report.
Okay. Some things I want to talk about are about alternative structures, so we'll save that to 7B. We've gotten back the integrated field review from the Agency of Education. I think you've all got that or gotten copies of it, or it's posted in your board web drives. The administrative team has had a look at those as well, and we've gone through and kind of tentatively prioritized the items in that, and so that's what I'm going to bring to the boards, the individual boards when I come. But a lot of them do actually have to do with the supervisory union too. So there's kind of two ways where we looked at it. One is who's responsible, and the second one is it a high priority item or is it a lower priority item? Because you can't do everything at once. So I'll be coming around with those in the next
Okay.
month or two. To your local boards, and then it may be that we want to take a look at those here because there's a number of SU.
All right, so we'll put that on the agenda for next month then as a
Yeah.
reviews just specifically the items related to the SU
Yeah,
as the
I think
individual
that's a good
board-
idea.
as the individual schools will be done at each individual school.
And also, the administrative team under Missy's leadership has been working on starting the curriculum document work. And so we're gonna, the first piece that we're gonna work on is English language arts revision to the curriculum. And the hope will be that next spring, that group will bring a completed curriculum document to you for your approval, because they're ultimately the SU board's bailiwick. And that the thought is that that will help set up a template of how these committees are going to deal with curriculum work, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time for people, and it can be a big obligation for teachers as well, because we want teachers to be involved, but we don't want to pull every teacher out of every school to work on 4 areas at once, which I can imagine creates a problem for us. Substitutes. So there's that.
Chris,
Yes.
how dated are the current curriculum documents?
Well, quite. They're not based on the Common Core standards, but that doesn't mean that what we're doing isn't based on the Common Core standards. We just haven't documented what we're doing
Sure.
right now. And we made a conscious choice at the time of the implementation of the Common Core to work from the assessments back to a document towards instruction. So what do we want kids to know, be able to do? How are we going to know that they can do that? Then how do we teach that? So that was really the approach we took, even though we knew it would delay, the production of these documents. So we're kind of catching up on that, but our teachers really are teaching a Common Core based curriculum, and
Yep.
we'll get there.
You have a question, Jack?
Yeah, we've talked about this at the high school off and on for a while. How will this tie to the whole proficiency-based?
Well, that's the other piece. So I guess I guess it's a good thing. When you take long enough to do something, now we have proficiency-based learning to deal with. So that will be part of what's integrated into these documents as well. So, yep, it's all one big fat ball of wax. So the teachers, I have some money in the SU budget for teacher work this summer. And so that'll be around the English language arts curriculum work. Last thing, not going to talk about it much, but maybe you saw it already. The Agency of Education just put out this required report on Act 46 and Act 153. I'm not going to go through it in any great detail, but it actually, I think is a pretty nice kind of statement of here's where the state is at. So it talks about, what districts have done in terms of mergers. Our hope for improvements, actual savings, and then there's a section in the back about the next step, which is this, of course, the section 9, applications for alternative structures. But I'm not going to talk about that anymore because we kind of got that under 7B.
Okay.
So.
All right. So everyone's got some reading material to take home. Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Edie, where are we at with our financials right now?
Well, right now, overall, we're in a good place. We're fine. As you go through, you'll see that some of the regular ed pairs are higher or lower than what we budgeted. They run lines 10 through 13. Each one of the schools that's on page 1 of 24 of the financial, or on page 14 if you're looking at the entire packet. You'll also see on the next page the 44, 45, and 46. Those are regular ed billbacks for priority placements. As we know, not all of those bills, even for special ed students, can be coded to special ed. So just to make you aware that those items will be, going back to the schools. Special ed, there are some items that are over budget. However, such as teachers' para salaries, which are line 49 and 51. And also lines 70. But just to make you aware that we have not really tapped into line 72 or 75 for purchase professional services or for tuition. We have students in and out all the time. So overall, special ed is more than fine. And then on triple E on lines 103, that was an invoice for the Vermont Association for the Blind and Hard of Hearing. But then if you go to line 137, those are for HCRS clinicians. We are booking them all to the SU. Based on the fall time studies, at least 60,000 of that is regular ed costs that will go back to the schools. However, we wait, and in the case of HCRS, we need 3 time studies. We wait until we receive them all, average them, and then that's what gets billed back. And then we have some items in transportation over, which is I think just if you look at transportation, I think we've got enough money budgeted. How,
Where is that?
line 445 it starts. I think the problem is transportation is split into 3 sections. This is the regular ed portion. There's also a special ed portion and early ed portion, and we kind of arbitrarily, or I arbitrarily move it, not knowing how it's gonna actually shake out. But if you take all of transportation together, we're really not over a huge amount. But we do have some revenues coming in to offset transportation. The summer services that were done for the YMCA. Line 476, the homeless student transportation. Missy and her staff that she works with, they've actually set up a billing system where we share those costs with other districts. Everyone's in agreement, which by statute they have to be. But since our transportation costs considerably less than contracted transportation, we either, if it's convenient for us to transport, we do, and they pay us for half, or sometimes we transport one way and another district will transport the other. It depends on where the student's going to school and the times and whether we have a bus going there anyway in most cases. So if we have a bus going to the Springfield Tech Center, we can easily add, another student. However, they will still reimburse us for half of the costs, even though we already have a bus. We actually do a per pupil cost, and they will reimburse us. So I think just by everything going through all this, overall, we're in good shape. I don't see any cause for alarm, and so we'll have to wait and see how the next few months play out. Yes, Jack?
Edie, I just want to make sure that, I'm looking, as you said, the purchase educational services, both the SPED and the other one that's showing $93,000, 137.
Yes. That's the HCRS clinician.
Right, yeah, and I appreciate that, just noticing how much more it was than I think we anticipated. The concern I have is, are we covered in terms of our budgetary forecast for the coming year? Did we jump it up that much? I don't remember doing that.
Well, this gets some of this, once the time studies are done, and HCRS clinicians have to do 3 time schedules a year.
Mm-hmm.
We average it. We have money budgeted in each of the schools for the regular ed portion, but because we don't know what the regular ed portion is, we keep them in the SU budget.
So this is an accounting artifact to a large extent? Is that your...
Well, yeah, we put them in here because we don't know what everybody's piece is gonna shake out. But based on just the fall time study, it looks like approximately 60,000 of this will be dispersed among the schools where the HCRS clinicians are, based on their regular ed costs. But we wait until we get all 3 time schedules, then we average it. It's less messy for the auditors to follow.
Yeah.
If we aren't having the schools pay and then reimburse us, and then the next time schedule we reimburse and go back and forth.
It was
so.
mostly a matter of just trying to determine whether this this ramps at odds with our forecast, and because we're holding it, it's hard to tell.
It is
just
hard to tell.
if this is just an artifact or not. It sounds like it is to an extent.
It is.
And the question then was, is this a not to worry about, and is this, or if it is something to worry about, are we covered for when we come into the next year? Because we put our budget to bed, and those numbers look like they would, if they continued the next
Right.
year, we'd be in trouble.
Right now, I think we're fine. Everything I've looked at, we're fine. However, when we do the budget, we make certain assumptions about these personnel based on the past, but kids change, their allocation to regular ed and special ed change. It's really hard to nail down an exact amount, but we don't expect to be more than 20 or 30,000 over budget. And because we have other money in special ed that appears not to be used, the overall special ed budget is fine. Also, there is money in each of the schools for this. And so we're taking a look at the appropriation back to the individual schools based on their HCRS worker to make sure that we don't have to have a concern about maybe one school taking the hit on this that's going to be way over budget. And so I will keep you informed at the individual schools if I see something like that. But right now, it looks like it's going to be fairly well dispersed based on what's already in the local school budgets.
At one time, we'd had difficulties with HCRS rather aggressively billing us, and I just wanted to know.
That process has been cleaned up considerably. And so, yeah, a lot of the stuff that happened a few years ago, we've got under control now, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got a couple of questions. One is on line 72 and 76, which you talked about briefly, but the special ed, purchase professional services, special ed, private tuition.
Okay.
There's considerable monies left now. Does that mean that there are fewer kids than we expected of being placed out of district?
Well, and I think probably Sharon would have to address that, but I think some of the students we expected to be out of district have either left or she's been able to pull them back in.
Right. There's been quite a bit of fluctuation this year between the students that were here and the students that are here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of it. The other thing is that, as they come up, it's really hard to gauge whether we're going to be able to do things through evaluation or if it's been done repetitively in the past, and so it can be a file review. So those pieces count. And the other thing, in regard to what Jack is talking about, we've had a upsurge in regular ed needs and a downsurge in special ed, but it seems to be leveling out for some reason. So, it's just one of those things, I hate to say wait till the end of the year, but that's kind of where it shows up.
Yeah, and one or two kids can make all the difference.
It does.
Yep.
Okay. And then I noticed on line 472 in the transportation part, the propane station, is that an operating expense, or was that for building it, or what?
That is the actual cost of the propane station, yes, and it came in higher. The estimates that were given to us, unfortunately, we found out afterwards that some of these companies assume that if they put in the pumping station, then we would buy fuel, propane from them for the next 2 years. However, legally, we can't do that. We have to go out to bid. So we found out that the numbers that they were giving us were lower than they should have been, because they had this idea, yeah, we'll do it for you for this much, and on the dotted line, you will guarantee to buy the next 2 years of propane. And they didn't understand how schools work. We cannot enter into a contract that does that. So yes, it is over budget. I know that Stanley's working on getting the final pieces of the electrical done. And I don't know what the cost of that's gonna be.
And then lastly, you were talking about that line,
The homeless?
transportation, and and you explained something about helping other districts and so on, but the, what does it mean?
Okay, the homeless student actually lives in this district. However, because they're homeless, they can go to any school. And probably Chris is better at explaining this than I am, but my understanding is if they're going to Brattleboro or they're going to Springfield, then when they end up being homeless and living in, let's say Rockingham, then they can continue, and probably should continue, to go to the school that they were in. And so we make a binding agreement with the district, and because we have a bus for the tech center going both ways, we can then just add them on to our bus. We estimate a cost of that student depending on the ridership, and then they pay us back half of that cost. But I've also seen it where we can't do both ways. We're going one way, and then so the district where the student attends may say, all right, well then I'll bring them back in the afternoon because you're coming back earlier than the student is out of school. But
So it's a kid who maybe had a family or has a family in,
Yeah, I'd
say,
like to
Springfield and
jump in on this.
Yeah.
please
If I could,
do.
please.
Right, yeah.
Yes, please do.
So McKinney-Vento is the federal law. It's about homeless students. It's not just, it can be either way. A family can become homeless here. They can move to anywhere. And they have the right for at least a year to come back to wherever they were going to school. So sometimes we're involved with kids that have become homeless here, they're living elsewhere. We're getting them transported one way or another here. Again, we split with the district where the kid lives. Other times the families become homeless in another district, they've ended up here, they're going to school back in their home district. So it's kind of crazy. But the idea, and it's a federal law, is that kids are better off, not being disrupted by, it's bad enough to be homeless, that it's, at least they get to stay in their home school. Sometimes that gets a little crazy, but, if you're spending a lot of time driving around. And, if you really want to learn about this, we should have Missy come in and talk about it, because it is a half-hour discussion about how it actually works. But there are homeless families lodged in hotels. There are homeless families lodged in housing in various towns. And we're spend quite a bit of time scrambling around to get kids transported. Occasionally, we're actually paying parents to transport because we just can't do it. So there's a lot of different ways that it costs us some money.
And do you have a sense of how many of the numbers? Can you say anything about 1 to 10 or 10 to 20? Or?
I would want Missy to talk about that. Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah, because I don't have them.
Okay. Other questions on the budget? Okay, thanks, Edie. If there's no objection, Sharon has a report, and she'd like to speak, so I'm gonna put that in here right now.
Go that way. I don't know if I've got enough of these. If somebody's short, I'll do them after. This is just your monthly report on the para situation and the student situation. It gives you a general idea of what, who we've got in the SU and who we haven't. The only thing that's not on this that I'd like to share is that our highest number this year has been 329. We're down to 314 right now. So.
Sure.
Other than that, the numbers haven't changed very dramatically anywhere. Anybody's got any questions? I'd love to answer them for you. And the yellow box at the bottom are the special ed referrals that are in place right now, as of this moment today. Won't guarantee tomorrow.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, moving on. Committees. We have the superintendent search. We'll talk about that separately. Are there any other active committees right now?
At the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay. Superintendent search update. Molly, would you bring us up to date in general terms as to where we're at?
I will. We interviewed 2 people today, and Brenda is going to contact you to make the next step, to get interviews and to have them take a tour of all of our schools. So 2 of us are going to, one in each vehicle, and try not to get in each other's way, and take them around to each school that we have and to the SU office, and then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon we're going to meet back at the high school, and in half-hour breaks, one of the candidates is going to be somewhere in the high school meeting with parents, and the other one will be with the staff that wants to meet and greet, and then we're going to swap them, and hopefully that same day we're going to bring them to the SU meeting for interviews.
Okay. So we're looking to have
But
some...
Brenda's going to contact you on the logistics of all
Right.
that.
So it's our goal then to have candidates presented to the board for the next board meeting.
This has been a good experience. Brenda has run a good meeting and kept things moving, and we hope that we can keep this moving and, get the process going as it's still fresh in our mind.
Great.
You may want to have a special board meeting, because this next one in February is the one that we
Oh, that's at the high school.
stick up in front of the high school annual meeting, and it's only an hour.
Yeah, I don't want to wait, and if
No.
we don't want to wait that long if we don't have to. We would like to continue this pace. It's going very well.
Then Brenda is our facilitator.
Brenda Needham is her
Brenda Needham.
last name. Yeah.
Right, for those of you who didn't catch that at the last meeting. And so I will coordinate with her regarding timing, and everyone is on notice that there may be a special meeting between now and our next scheduled meeting in order to keep the process moving ahead at a reasonable pace.
Thank you.
Okay.
How many candidates have you,
There's 2 up there right now.
two
we're
that
talking
you've
to. Yes,
gone to the interview process?
Correct.
correct.
And do you expect more, or is that
No, we've interviewed the 2 that we
you thought were the
chose,
best? Yeah, okay.
and it was a real split decision, and we decided to bring them both to the board.
So how there were others in the pool that you decided not to bring to this level?
There was 7 applications.
Okay.
Okay. What's the next?
And there were some that actually backed out. That are
Yes.
too.
Okay, but that was a good pool. We've done. I believe we've done well if we can actually have 2 viable candidates. That's excellent, and we're right on schedule, folks. So
Yep.
we're exactly where we should be timing-wise and the schedule that we initially set out. So congratulations to the committee so far on their work, and hopefully we'll get this knocked down within the next month. Okay, alternative structures update.
Okay, I don't have anything stunningly new. Currently working with the Athens and Grafton boards around possible union school creation. The more I look into it, actually, the more little interesting niggling questions I come up with. So I think we're going to see if it's a viable alternative. And they meet the second Thursday of the month. I have not heard anything from the secretary's office about when our conversations with the secretary are going to happen. But I mean, it's hard for me to imagine because she is pinned down by the legislature right now, and that isn't going to stop for a few weeks. So I would guess that we're not going to be seeing Secretary Holcomb much before March, but that's just a guess. I don't know. And I haven't heard anything from Donna Russo, who is her point person on that. So it's kind of where we stand. We're just kind of waiting.
We're in a holding pattern.
Yeah.
And I think it should be said that we got our, because we haven't had a meeting and haven't reported on it.
That's true.
We got the application in a few days prior to the deadline, which was
Yep.
real hard and fast anyway. But we did that thanks to, in large part, to Chris's work, helping it all up.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think it's a pretty viable proposal. I am still inclined to think that the state actually can't do anything. The state can't take away choice. The state can't make you not be part of a union high school district. I'm just not certain that the state has an
Coherent?
action that's legal, not just coherent, but
Well,
legal here in this district.
Well, I think as we talked about earlier in terms of just Grafton Elementary and some of the other small schools in Windham County, there is a constitutional right to easy access to education, and some of the stuff about threatening to close schools and threatening to put into effect a lot of other things that both affect governance that extend well past what Act 46 says, not to mention what basic law of the state says. I think they're pushing it.
Well, I think there are districts where they could cause districts to be formed, but I'm not sure that that's possible here, from what I can do.
Okay.
But I've been wrong before.
We shall see.
Yeah, we will.
We shall see.
A lot of litigation if they do it.
Okay, good. Moving on, new business for discussion. Approve going out to bid for audit services. This is for a 3-year.
Yes, the audit we just went through for the 16-17 school year was the last year of our last 3-year bid. And it's really good if we can have the same auditor for 3 years in a row for consistency's sake, rather than to try to change auditors every year. So yeah, I would like to go out to bid again for 3 years and see who we get and what they offer.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to offer a motion that we go out to bid for a 3-year contract for auditing services.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? Any objections? There being no objections, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. And I assume then you'll come back with some bids for us to look at.
Yes.
Outstanding.
Can I just, I assume that audit bid is for all the towns well, each town has to.
No,
authorize
we
it
do them all 7
all together.
audits. Yeah,
Okay,
get a better deal.
yeah. Approve requests for unpaid leave.
The list is mercifully small tonight.
Good.
But in 2 pieces. So the first are paraprofessionals. Again, it's new folks who don't have sick leave. Allison Bashaw is requesting a half-day sick. She's already taken it. And Jessica Boucher needed a half-day back in November and anticipates a half-day on February 1st and full days on February 2nd and 5th.
That's 1, 2, so that's 3
So
days?
it's 1, 2, yeah, it's a total of 3.
3 days.
So if you want to make a motion on those, I'll do the
Okay.
next piece.
I entertain a motion. You're the motion man tonight.
Apparently so.
For the man in
I would
motion.
like to move that we approve the, pardon me, let me rephrase it. Based upon the recommendation of administration, I would like to move that we approve a half-day retroactive leave for Allison Bashaw and a total of 3 days leave, 1/2 of those days retroactive for Jessica Boucher. Do I have that correctly, Chris?
Perfect.
You got that. Second?
Second.
All right, second. Any discussion? Any objections? There being no objection, the motion passes. Next.
Okay, the next is a teacher request from Cheryl Gay Sherwin. Cheryl is a speech-language pathologist for the district. She writes, "Dear WNSU School Board, I'm writing to you in hopes of being granted permission to take up to 3 days leave, unpaid, she means, in the final week before April vacation. My daughter Cassie will be doing a semester abroad in Spain. My husband and I are hoping to visit her there during April break. She currently attends college in California, so we don't get to see her very much. She will not be on break while we are there, so arriving a few days early would give us the weekend to spend with her free of her college classes." And we are, Mrs. Reynolds and I are supporting this on using the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity argument. So,
Okay. Do I have a motion?
up to 3 days.
David?
Molly?
I move that we approve the request of unpaid leave for, is it unpaid for Cheryl?
Yeah.
Cheryl Gay Sherwin for 3 days, the 3 days right before April vacation.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second, David. Any discussion? Any objections? There being no objection, the motion passes. Okay, we now come to the the open position of Director of Student Support Services, and Chris is going to bring someone forth.
Yes, the feature event here. We finally got to. Yeah. I'd like to present to all of you Andy Haas, or Andrew Haas. We all call him Andy already.
Andy,
Yeah.
Andy.
We had a good process. We had a great search committee. You were on it. Rick Holloway was on it, who's not here, but also the Assistant Director of Special Ed. Karen Bukowski and Sela Dorr were both principals, and 2 parents were also on the committee. And we were I think I said long ago, I'll be happy to find one really good person, and that's really what we did. So the search committee, after interviewing Andy, was unanimous in their recommendation to me to bring him forward to the board, and I agreed wholeheartedly. So Andy is originally from were you or not really originally from California?
I was born in Chicago.
Okay, but he went to school in California and has his master's and bachelor's from University of California, and then and worked there as a special educator son, and then inexplicably moved to New England, which you'll have to explain, I guess, where he has served as both special ed teacher and at the Nashua South High School in Nashua, New Hampshire, but also as assistant principal and principal in a number of schools, including the Brattleboro Union High School. So there's a local connection here where I was able to check you out, actually.
He knows a guy.
I do know a few people. So, and Andy's currently principal of the Ellis School in Fremont, New Hampshire, which is a bit of a hike. He lives in Keene. It's even a hike from Keene, I guess.
Out to Fremont?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday was a big hike.
Yeah. A big bad hike, yeah. So, but we were all really impressed by sort of professional knowledge and even-handedness, and we think he'll be a great addition to our district, and I'm heartily recommending him to you all. But I realize you may also want to ask him some questions, since this is a major position in the district and a very significant hire. And I don't know if how exactly you want to proceed at this point.
If we would like to ask Andy questions, I believe it would be most appropriate in executive session.
I would say, yeah.
I would say
because you're
so.
interviewing him.
Yes.
But if you'd just like to hear him talk a little bit, I'm sure he's got a few remarks.
Well, why don't you make some public remarks, and then we'll make a determination as to where we're
Sure.
going to go.
So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm honored to be here, and I hope I can live up to how Chris billed me. To be very honest, I'm humbled. Thank you. Just what Chris was saying, moving out here to New England or to New Hampshire was my wife's vision. She's from Connecticut originally, and she wanted to get back to the East Coast. And so the story goes that she actually applied for me to get a position at Cushing Academy, which is a boarding school in Ashburnham, Mass. I was meeting with my entire coaching staff at the time, and so she had nothing to do, so she went upstairs, and she was actually applying for the year in the future, and they called and said, "Can you fly out? We'd love to have you come out here." And we came out, and it was one of those things that everything worked. Her company paid for the move. Her company offered her a raise. They put us up while we waited, and we didn't have kids at the time, so we were like, we were young, and we'd do it. We can, see what happens, and we, really enjoyed living here, and so we kind of decided to put down roots. And my journey took me away from special education, because that's where I started out in education. It's what I enjoyed the most to do, and when I went to Nashua, they said, "Oh, we're going to have these administrative positions. We'd love to have you come on and see what happens." And you got on a track, and I enjoyed working. I've learned a tremendous amount, being a building administrator. But it was really something I wanted to do, was to get back into special education. And when I took the position at Ellis, the goal was, my wife was working out of, she manages 2 different offices at the time. And so our goal was to move over to that side of New Hampshire, and just a series of things just started not working out. The housing market is not what the housing market you want it to be, and especially in Keene. But also her job completely changed, and she became a telecommuter, and so there was no need. And my son started high school, and he said, I don't want to move, and we really felt like we had to honor that piece a little bit. And so in looking at trying to make the transition, to find something closer to home, was really like an opportunity to really come back to what I enjoy most, which is special education, and just the opportunity to come in and work in it and get back to what I love is what I'm looking to do.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Would people like to address particular questions to Andy?
This would be within the framework of
I just need to know.
executive session, or?
Yes.
Yes, I wouldn't mind if we did that.
You would like to, okay. Can I have a motion to go into executive session then, please, from someone?
Make a motion.
From Jack, okay. Seconded by Lynn. We'll ask the administration to stay, and Don, you're welcome to stay also as a board member. Okay. So we are now in executive session. Okay, just let us know when you're ready. You're on. Josh, are you ready to go? Okay, so now we're officially out of executive session. Evan?
I'll move that the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board extend the contract that we have reviewed as an offer to Mr. Haas as Director of Student Support Services.
Okay. Do I have a second?
You do. Second.
Well, I got a whole bunch of them, okay? Charles was first up. Okay,
Yes,
any discussion? Any objections at all? There being no objections, the motions are passed. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Thank you, appreciate
Okay.
it.
Well, he's got to accept. Yes.
I think we're there.
I'm in front of the door.
Leslie, don't let him out.
You got it.
Okay, director's comments. Charles?
I think we made a good choice tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that that we're very pleased to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, concur with Jack.
Molly?
Welcome, and I hope that we are able to get a early meeting on the superintendent hire.
Agreed.
We're in the director's comments. Just a couple of comments. Phil Scott's got a budget proposal out there. I think it's $84 million. New money, but no new taxes or fees. Going to be an interesting wiggle. In the fine print, it turns out that Phil also would like to have a commission on closing small schools. Very interesting. I'm just going to mention in passing that the Alliance of Vermont School Board Members, if that sounds vaguely familiar to people in this room, is trying to get a meeting scheduled on February 24th, which is a Saturday, Montpelier High School, for the purpose of comparing notes on alternative governance structures. We anticipate there will probably be a couple of panels for the purpose of panel discussions, one of which would be legal, and the other would discuss the mechanics of getting these AGSs actually approved by the State Board of Education.
Nice heads up. Thank you.
None, welcome, except welcome aboard.
Thank you. Margaret?
I'd like to pass along a suggestion from a member of the public that we put on the website the list of committee members for the superintendent search committee. So someone approached me and asked about it and suggested that suggestion.
Okay. So you can do that.
I'd just like to reflect that we've just got a new director of student support services. We're about to have a new superintendent. We've just come through the ringer of Act 46, and hope that the next year or so might be a bit more quiet.
That's great. I just also wanted to say welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. David?
Yes, welcome. And
Thank you very much.
Pleased you're here.
Okay, yeah, and again, welcome. I'd like to thank everyone who served on the committee for the hiring of Andy, and also to commend the work of the committee so far on the superintendent's search. The date of our next scheduled meeting will be February 28th at the high school. With any luck, we will be able to schedule an additional meeting relative to the appointment of a new for the superintendent search.
That'll be at the usual 6:30 time, or do we need to?
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna need to be earlier.
Okay.
It's gonna need to be at 6. It'll be a special meeting.
At 6 o'clock.
That's
high
on
school.
February
Those were on 28th.
February.
On the 28th.
So that meeting will be at 6
At the
o'clock.
school, right.
And as soon as we can nail down some dates relative to moving ahead with the superintendents and having a special meeting for that, we will do so. There being no objections, we are now adjourned. Thank you.